Hello everyone, our names are Schuver and Raeya Finkle, and we are current juniors in the Carroll College Nursing Department. Today we are talking about the effects of delayed cord clamping with the Peacock question, in infants, does delayed umbilical cord clamping compared to immediate umbilical cord clamping have a positive effect on child's health and well-being? Delayed cord clamping, or DCC, is defined as the practice of waiting 60 seconds or longer before cutting the umbilical cord of a newborn baby. The umbilical cord attaches the infant to the mother and is the infant's main blood and nutrient supply while still in the mother's uterus. Immediate cord clamping, or ICC, is the practice that is widely used today of clamping and cutting the cord as soon as the infant is born. It is usually the first thing that happens once the baby comes out of the womb. We got interested in this topic last semester when we took the nursing class, Care of the Childbearing Family. Our professor briefly mentioned delayed cord clamping as a way to increase blood volume at birth, and it stuck with us as an interesting piece of information to carry with us. Both of us are interested in going into labor and delivery nursing, so when we were told we had to pick a topic to research, we knew that we wanted to do something related to infants or birth. We thought about doing a topic about effects of universal health care, or even a topic about postpartum depression. We ultimately decided on the topic of delayed cord clamping when we started to research all of those topics and found that there were a bunch of articles on delayed cord clamping. We also thought that this would be a topic that we could use in our professional lives in the years to come. Once we picked this topic, we started to use the Carroll College database to find articles that pertain to all parts of our Peacock question and were published in a peer-reviewed article and journal. We also tried to keep all articles we used being published within the last 5 years, although we did find one article that was a little older being published in 2011, but it fit perfectly with our question. We contacted our supervising professor and were able to get permission to use the older article. We were also able to set up an appointment with a librarian at the Carroll College Library, and she aided us in learning how to use the Carroll College database and was also able to help us find some articles that led us to finding other articles that fit more perfectly with our Peacock question. When we narrowed down which articles we were going to use within this research project, we had an assignment to critique everything about it to see if it was truly the best type of article that we could find. We looked at where the articles were published, what level of evidence it was, who the authors were, if there was enough information provided in each section, and if it was a fairly new published research article. We were not able to use articles that were considered systematic reviews, since the purpose of this project is to conduct our own systematic review. After choosing our articles, we had to write a synopsis of why our information was important and what kind of problem it addresses. We found that the United States was ranked at number 33 out of 36 countries in infant mortality, leading by 71% higher than comparable countries. The US had 5.7 deaths out of every 1,000 births, and in 2018 there were over 21,000 infants who had died. With the research we were doing, we hoped to find that the simple intervention of delayed cord clamping could make a difference in these troubling statistics and lessen the mortality rate. Article 1 is entitled Umbilical Cord Blood Acid Base and Gas Analysis After Early versus Delayed Cord Clamping in Neonates at Term by DePaco et al. 2011. This study is a Level 2 peer-reviewed and randomized controlled trial study to prove that delayed cord clamping can be practiced safely without compromising the data found in acid-base status and blood gas analysis. The umbilical vein blood acid-base status and gases were analyzed in 65 early clamped and 51 delayed clamped cords. Infants were held at 20 centimeters below the introitus in every case, and the umbilical cord was double clamped with separate samples being taken from the vein and arteries that were analyzed within 15 minutes. The results of this study found the mean umbilical artery PO2 value was significantly higher in the delayed cord clamping group versus the immediate cord clamping group. The acid base and gas analysis had no significant differences after a delay of 2 minutes for cord clamping, and this suggests that the acid base status and blood gas values could be assessed in full-term infants without issue. Overall, with DCC, the acid-base balance is not interrupted and does not adversely affect infants. Article 2 is entitled Effects of Delayed Cord Clamping on 4-Month Ferritin Levels, Brain Myelin Content, and Neurodevelopment by Mercer et al. 2018, and is a Level 2 peer-reviewed randomized controlled study to evaluate whether placental transfusion via DCC influences brain myelination at 4 months of age. In this study, 64 healthy, full-term, singleton pregnancies randomly assigned to DCC or ICC with follow-up appointments at 4 months for ferritin level testing, Mullen scales, and magnetic resonance imaging, MRI, to to determine brain myelin content and to understand correlations between ferritin and myelin. Hematocrit for the DCC group was 57.6% versus the 53.1% in the ICC group. DCC had larger ferritin levels than the ICC group, which were found to have a positive correlational relationship with myelin content. The DCC group also had a greater myelin content in the areas of the brain associated with motor, visual, and sensory processing and function. But no differences were found between DCC and ICC in Mullen testing. Iron-rich red blood cells obtained through DCC may provide longitudinal advantage for white matter development without any concerning effects.
Article 3 is entitled Delayed versus Immediate Cord Clamping Changes Oxygen Saturation and Heart Rate Patterns in the First Minutes After Birth by Padilla Sanchez et al., published in 2020. It is a Level 4 peer-reviewed non-randomized quantitative study involving 282 infants born at 37 or more weeks of gestation after an uneventful pregnancy and vaginal delivery. The time of expulsion of the infant was considered time zero, and a pulse oximeter was placed on the infant's wrist. Readings were set at maximal intensity, and measurements were performed every 2 seconds to get preductal oxygen saturation and heart rate levels. The time of umbilical cord was clamped was recorded as time of DCC, and readings continued for the first 10 minutes of life. The study found that infants who underwent DCC of 60 seconds or more had a higher oxygen saturation and heart rate in the first 5 minutes than infants who underwent ICC. The study stated that DCC has been attributed to an increase in the circulating blood volume, which stabilizes the infant's hemodynamics and contributes to preventing iron deficiency anemia. Our fourth article, titled A Randomized Controlled Study of Immediate versus Delayed Umbilical Cord Clamping in Infants Born by Elective Cesarean Section by Giuseppe De Bernardo et al., was published in 2020. This article was a Level 2 peer-reviewed non-randomized controlled study that compared DCC in C-sections to ICC. It focused on measuring oxygen saturation, heart rate, temperature, hematocrit, and bilirubin levels. 132 infants born at 37 weeks or more of gestation were split into two groups, Group A, who were to undergo ICC, or Group B, who were designated to undergo DCC. A pulse oximeter and cardiac monitor were placed on the infant at birth, and a heel prick was done to get a blood sample after 72 hours of life. The study found no significant differences in the heart rate, oxygen saturation, and temperature between the groups, but found greater levels of hematocrit and bilirubin levels in Group B without an increased need for phototherapy. Researchers found DCC gives the baby about an additional 80 to 100 milliliters of blood and 20 to 30 milligrams of iron. The study concluded that the lack of difference in temperature between groups confirms safety of DCC, and the results strongly support the hypothesis that DCC is better than ICC. Overall, the results were conclusive and suggest that DCC should be the accepted practice in the birthing experience, as it overall has a positive effect on child health and well-being when compared to immediate cord clamping. When researching the articles, it was found that one group of DCC infants did have a higher bilirubin level than the ICC group. However, there were no need for phototherapy for the related jaundice in any of the infants, leading to the researchers to suggest that there is no real concern moving forward with DCC as standard practice within the obstetric, gynecology, and midwifery fields of practice. It was also found in one study that cord milking was an alternative for DCC when DCC could not be used. Cord milking is the practice of tightly squeezing and rubbing the cord towards the infant as another means of placental transfusion and has had similar success to DCC. Additional research should be conducted on the effectiveness of cord milking, but one could advocate for either DCC or cord milking as of now. As future nurses, we can apply this to the health field through advocacy and education. We must advocate for DCC as standard practice through the quality and safety education for nurses' competencies that include evidence-based practice and quality improvement in order to give the best care and achieve the best health outcomes for our patients. Nurses can advocate for a change through administrative dealings, scheduling expert speakers, attending seminars, and reaching out to other institutions that have had success implementing DCC. We can educate patients and give them the option when discussing the family's birthing plan before the birthing experience, and advocate for patients who chose DCC by making it known to the physician or midwife involved in the birthing process. Hopefully, widespread adoption of the DCC practice will become standard, and all members of the interdisciplinary team during pregnancy and the birthing experience will come to advocate and provide necessary education.